Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Last week, we spoke about the phase of spirituality called Yaqadha, which means spiritual awakening. And we spoke about how that is initiated by first and foremost recognizing that we were created with a purpose. Right? And we also spoke about a subcategory under this phase, which is called al-basira, which means insight. Having insight as to why you were created, having insight as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent messengers and sent revelation, as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us with certain obligations and prohibitions, and to have insight to Allah's names and attributes, because it is through His names and attributes can we really understand why He decrees certain things, and why He created the world the way it is, and why He does and commands the way He does. It's through His names and attributes. And to give a very quick example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman, right? The most compassionate, the most merciful. And therefore, because these are His names, or among His names, everything that He commands, whether it be a religious obligation, such as praying 5 times a day, or a religious prohibition, such as don't drink alcohol, or if it's the way He created the universe, or certain decrees, like divine decrees, what's called predestination, etc., fate, why He does that? Well, it must be understood through the lens of these two names, Rahman or Rahim, as well as through the lens of Al-Alim, Al-Hakim, the all-knowledgeable and the all-merciful. And that gives us insight as to why certain things happen and why Allah decrees certain things upon a particular person or people. As well as having insight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promises and threats, al-wa'd wal-wa'id. And we spoke about that in the previous talk. Today, we'll enter another subcategory under al-Yaqadha, which is al-Qasd. Meaning, one of the main reasons or one of the main goals behind a spiritual awakening, right, thinking about why we were created and our purpose in this universe, is to create action. Right? When you know that you are created for a reason, there is a purpose as to why you are here, it should initiate a longing or a thirst for actually doing something. I'm going to fulfill that purpose. I was not created just to, commute to work and commute back and work all these long hours so that I could get a two-week vacation. That's not why I was created. That's only part of my purpose. My greater purpose is to worship Allah. Right? So the question becomes, okay, I understand that, but it might not be quite enough to push me to actually do frequently and consistently. So now we need to try and explore ways of further encouraging ourselves, further motivating ourselves to stay on this path. Sometimes people start strong, and with time that motivation kind of dies out. That's actually quite normal. Even the companions sometimes struggled with this. How do you keep that high? And when it starts going low, well, how do we, slow that down and get back up? Well, perhaps the most effective way of doing that is remembering the next life. Al-Akhirah. The concept of Al-Akhirah, which keeps popping up in this phase of spirituality, in Yaqadha. Remembering the next life. Because none of us, no human being, will ever deny the reality that they will die. And therefore, this is real. The question of what happens after death is a real question. And it's an uncomfortable one. Some people react by trying to explore the various religions. Some people react by trying to reject the concept itself, that there's a next life. I don't want to have to deal with that. Because if I know that there are certain things that occur in the next life and I'm accountable for that, right, then, well, it's quite a problem because I'm just not up for that lifestyle. I'm not up for submitting myself to a superior being, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some people react by saying, oh, this thing of death, it's not going to happen. Invent, longer life for me. Invent immortality for me. I do not want to die. Right? Now there are all these crazy theories. Can you upload your consciousness or your conscious in some sort of hard drive? Some people are exploring this concept of nanobites, right? Nanobite technology, where they inject a person with these nanobites that are able to detect diseases, right, and illnesses, and cure it before it even, starts bringing about its symptoms, right? And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, there is nothing explicit in the Quran that says that we cannot live longer lives. But what Allah does confirm is that that won't change the end result. You're going to die. And if you lived a life, of rejecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, well, living 1,000 years is not going to save you from the hellfire, subhanAllah. It's a very powerful verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. So the more a person can become in tune with the next life, have it, a central concept in their daily routine, have the next life, the more they are attached to it, they're constantly remembering it, well, the more it's going to motivate them, because it's serious. And the Quran is full of verses that talk about the next life. It's there, verse after verse after verse after verse, in such vivid and great detail. From the moment our souls leave our bodies until, the day of judgment, and until our meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and until, we enter paradise, inshaAllah. It's all there. Why? Because this is supposed to motivate you, keep you engaged, and it's quite effective. And you find that constantly in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ties the concept of the next life, the belief in the next life, with the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's said that Voltaire was a philosopher, a French philosopher during the Democratic Revolution, I believe in the 18th century. He says that he didn't believe in the afterlife. He just couldn't fathom the fact that our bodies are revived, resurrected after it becomes dirt and dust. However, later on in life, he said something really important, which you find that in the Quran. He said there is no point in believing in God if you don't believe in the next life. It just doesn't work. And the Quran says that وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ. And those who believe in the next life, they believe in it. Either it referring either to the Prophet ﷺ or the Quran. In another verse, إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهُ وَاحِدٌ فَالَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ مُنْكِرَةٌ وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ. This is Surah Al-Nahl, and this is really powerful. It's so deep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, your Lord, your God is one God. As for those who disbelieve in the next life, right? So you find the link, or you find a link between the concept of Tawheed, monotheism, and the belief in the next life, right? Affirming that some people accept it. However, those who reject the next life, Allah says, قُلُوبُهُمْ مُنْكِرَةٌ. Their hearts are rejecting. They reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They reject His blessings. They reject submitting to Him. وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ. And they're also arrogant. So, there's the hadith that no one will enter paradise with an ounce of arrogance in their heart. Why is that? And we've discussed this before, and we said that, okay, well, how do we resolve this? Each and every one of us has at least an ounce, right? No one's perfect. So how are we going to enter paradise? We all seem doomed. Well, when we see, the marvel of the next life and Allah's ability, we're limited in what we can see right now. What we see is marvelous, but imagine the next life. That's quite intense, and all the detail. When the oceans erupt and you see, your home planet that you lived on for so many years, kind of crumbling and shattering, and you see the sun that you would wake up to every day, and the moon that you would enjoy seeing, kind of going asunder. SubhanAllah. I mean, that's quite intense. When we see that, and we see Allah's ability and His armies and all the angels, Right? When we see, we get another glimpse of his kingdom, well, that will take out any arrogance that's left in our hearts. But there's another question that we should contemplate, and that is, well, why can't a person enter paradise when there's just a simple ounce, a small ounce of arrogance? Well, it's arrogance that keeps a person away from God. Arrogance, right? If you look at it from spiritual terms, arrogance is a barrier, a very solid, thick barrier between a person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that was the problem of Iblis, the very first sin. Right? Why didn't he prostrate to Adam? Well, it's arrogance. Aba wastakbar. He refused and he was arrogant. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes. And the arrogance manifested itself in a way that, subhanAllah, I mean, we gasp when we hear it. What did he do? He said, قَالَ بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. He said, because you deceived me, talking to Allah. Saying it's your fault. I didn't prostrate to Adam, it's not my fault, it's your fault. Right? And that was in his heart all this time. And that arrogance was quite, big. And he didn't realize it. And no one realized it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But look at what that did for him. So long as a person has some arrogance in their heart, then there's work to be done, because that is creating that barrier between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this verse really elaborates on how we can resolve that problem, the human problem of arrogance, at least on an individual level. The more you think of the next life, the more it suppresses arrogance. Why? Because the next life is all about Allah. You don't have a choice there. No one does. You don't have kingdoms who are going to fight over land and fight over power and oppress people, or you're not going to be someone who is oppressed or an oppressor. You have no choice there but to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more you think of that, the more it kind of it softens the heart. It really does. Also, قُلُوبُهُمْ مُنْكِرَةٌ. Their hearts are rejecting. Well, when you think of the next life, and you think how to get there, well, one of the greatest or the best ways to get there is gratitude. Looking at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you and thanking Him for it. There's a lot of reward there. Inshallah, we'll speak about gratitude once we get there. So by thinking and contemplating and reflecting on the next life, by doing this frequently, it really softens the heart and it opens up a door to this world that someone who doesn't believe in next life does not have. They see it in such a different way, right? This world isn't the end goal. And therefore, those $1 million homes and those very expensive cars and all that luxury, yeah, it's nice, we all wish we had it. But what is that in comparison to the next life? I'm not going to regret it. I'm not going to give up my principles for that. If Allah gives it to me in this life, alhamdulillah, I hope it doesn't take away from my next life. And it shouldn't. Right? But if I don't get it in this life, then there's nothing to regret. There's nothing to mourn. Because a home in paradise is, greater than this entire world that we live on. If the lowest person in paradise gets the earth and 10 times it, that's the lowest person in paradise. Right? There's not much to really mourn. Alhamdulillah, whatever. We'll get by. It brings us much more pleasure to look at the natural world around us. To walk by these mountains, between these trees, and then contemplate, man, look at paradise. I'll have trees left and right. I'll have mountains left and right. All for me. And that really softens the heart. A second way of building this qasd, this motivation, this want for spirituality to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ملاحظة النعمة. التفرغ إلى صاحب النعمة والعلم بالتقصير في حقها, is to notice one's blessings. And we kind of briefly touched on it, but now we'll go into a little bit more detail. The more we can see the blessings that we have, right, the more love we have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm not talking about the simple blessings, the blessings that come and go, like wealth. A person can be rich today, poor tomorrow. A person can be poor today, rich tomorrow. And there are many, I'm talking about the things that money can't buy. right? Like health, like being a Muslim. You can't buy someone, and you can't buy your conversion or someone else's conversion. That is quite a grueling process for someone to leave a lifestyle in order to start a second lifestyle. That's not easy, especially if they're a little bit, more experienced in life. They have more stability in life. It's not that easy. Some people, have kids and they're married. How does it affect them? Some people are kids and their parents reject them. So that is quite a big blessing for those who are able to overcome those hurdles, right? To jump over that hurdle, or for those who are born and given to them as a gift. Yet so many people who are born as Muslims completely overlook it, subhanAllah. So we as human beings, we have this natural inclination towards those who, do good for us and are nice to us. When someone does us a favor, it's almost automatic that we feel like we're obliged to, return the favor. And just to give a very simple example, if you are walking by and someone, trips over and you help them up, or someone is holding a bag and the bag falls from their hand and you pick it up for them, right? What do they say? Oh, thank you. I truly appreciate that. Now imagine they didn't say that. Imagine they just took the bag and just kept walking. Like, how rude, right? That's what we would say. How rude. Even though it's such a simple act. Right? I mean, if someone sneezes and tells you bless you, say, oh, thank you. And if they don't respond to thank you, how rude. Now imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us our soul, all these senses, our minds, our ability to do and not to do, to choose. He has given us everything that we possess. It's from Him, right? An entire universe that's centered around us, that caters to our needs. And yet how many people don't say thank you? Compare this to that. Now, it is an interesting analogy. If we are upset with someone who doesn't say thank you after we do a very small favor, how about us not thanking Allah for the countless, the infinite blessings He has given us? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَظَلُومٌ كَفَّارٌ. And if you were to count the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll never be able to fully, list them. You can't, it's impossible. I mean, every day we learn something new about the human body. How many millions, yet rather billions of cells are just in the mind, the brain? And if one of them goes off track, it could create major mental disorders, like Alzheimer's. The theory is that what causes Alzheimer's is that the cells that are, that are responsible for memory, they're kind of on a track, right? Something happens where, one of those cells stops, or it kind of goes off course, creating some sort of disruption in the cycle. And what does that cause? Alzheimer's disease. May Allah protect us. I mean, what's controlling that? Look at how sensitive we are, how vulnerable we are. Yeah, we never think about this. And when you go out and you look at these pictures, or Google, or you go out to the desert with a clear sky, I mean, the amount of stars that are in the sky and just the image of it is so breathtaking that we would love to see every single day. But yet we never thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or how many people thank Allah because He put these stars in a way that beautifies our lives and gives us that image, something to look at, something that's breathtaking, and we appreciate it. And if you were to count the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll never fully be able to list them. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of reprimands humans. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَظَلُومٌ كَفَّارٌ. Indeed, human beings are unjust, and they have this habit of kufr. And here it means rejecting, and not necessarily faith. Sometimes it is faith. Other times, if it's Muslims they're rejecting the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, we are unjust with these blessings of Allah because we use them constantly to take us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? Meaning we have these 5 senses. Let's take vision, for example. We have this beautiful blessing of vision that we will not trade. Half of one eye. Who would trade one eye for $1 billion? Maybe someone will, right? Maybe someone will. But the average person would say, heck no. No, I'll live the rest of my life, making it paycheck to paycheck, but keep my second eye. It's more important to me than $1 billion, right? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us that eye with a purpose, that we look at the universe around us, explore it, so that we get to know Allah more. And He says this, Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawatin wa min al-ardi mithlahun يتنزل الأمر بينهن لتعلموا أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. The last verse of Surah Al-Talaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He created the 7 heavens and the earth likewise, meaning 7 layers of the earth, however, whatever that means. And He sent down revelation between the two for you to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all things, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's authority extends to all things, right? And the key word here is to know. Meaning Allah did this for you to know Him, to get to know Him a little bit more. Well, vision is one of the main channels to that. When you look at the world around you, what we're supposed to use our sight for is to contemplate that so that we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To look at the Quran and read it and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet how many people use their vision to look at that which is forbidden? They use it in a manner that distance themselves from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the exact contrary to why we were given this, right? So the more a person looks at their blessings, the more they can count them and realize them and internalize it in their hearts to where it's not just appreciation. In psychology, they distinguish appreciation from gratitude. Appreciation is recognizing the value or the qualities of someone. Yes, I recognize Allah has given me this blessing. I appreciate that. I recognize Allah is the one who gave it to me. But gratitude, is a type of awe. It's a type of emotional reaction to the blessing. It enters the heart and not just the mind. So the more we can really live that, the more we can look at the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what it does is it creates this loyalty to Allah that no one else can even come close to claiming. No one else can come even close to claiming it. Who can claim that they gave you an eye? Just one eye. The eyebrows, your eyebrows. Shave your eyebrows. No. No, it's not going to happen, right? I know these days, these actresses are shaving it off, but what? To tattoo it, right? It's not that they want to get rid of it entirely, but they want to try and do something else. It's not really here in the West, but in the East, oh man, these Arab actresses and whatnot, they literally shave, like they remove their hair entirely to where it doesn't grow back, and then they tattoo an eyebrow, like not like manufactured hair, like an actual tattoo. And they put an eyebrow so it doesn't change, right? But when we look at even some simple blessings that aren't essential to our lives, it's who else can give us that? Your hair grows. SubhanAllah, what's making it grow? And it's constantly growing, and you can do things with it. The more we can internalize this, and the more we can link Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to these blessings, and the more we realize how short we are, how little we do in thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that, the more we realize how much work we have. I have a lot to do. Every day when I wake up, I need to be more thankful, right? Now, there is a secret behind this. That is, we believe and we affirm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He commanded us with anything or encouraged us to do anything, it is because it first and foremost goes back to our own comfort, our own well-being. Allah has nothing to gain, absolutely nothing. He created us to have mercy on us, and part of that is telling us this is good for you and this is not good for you. If something is detrimental to our health, our faith, then it's forbidden. If something is critical to the strength of our iman and relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it becomes an obligation. A gratitude sometimes is an obligation, sometimes it's highly recommended. But what else do we gain out of this other than good deeds? Well, when you focus on your blessings, right? When you start looking at what you have, you forget about what you don't have. And when you see what you have, you enjoy it more. And we always have those cliche stories where, those YouTube 5-minute videos or whatever, where, a tragedy happens and then you start thinking, oh, I didn't take advantage of my time with that person and what did I do and whatnot. And this is a person who's constantly with you. Why? Because they're so focused on something that they don't have, potentially, that they forget about the great blessings that they do have. What's more valuable, $1 billion or a child? I mean, this is an obvious one. You have the child in front of you. You might have plenty of them. Maybe one too many than you can chew, all right? But we always seem so focused on what we don't have that we forget about the major blessing that we do have. SubhanAllah. So by focusing on one's blessings, realizing them, finding them, you enjoy it that much more. And you enjoy life that much more. It brings you happiness, SubhanAllah. And, part of repentance even is looking at those blessings. Oh my God, Allah has given me all of this. And in return, this is what I do. I do so little. Now, I'm not praying my 5 daily prayers. I slack in Ramadan. I haven't been giving my zakah. Or, I watch shows that I shouldn't be watching, etc. The more you can see those blessings, the more you realize how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is loyal to you. And that you need to return that. You need to be loyal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sins, as we have explained, is really, sins are a betrayal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He has given us. Sins are an allegiance or showing loyalty to your enemy, the one who refused to prostrate to your father, and the one who promised to drag you literally by your throats to hellfire. As He says in Surah Al-Isra, لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ ذُرِّيَّتَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Literally, this is how He words it. I'm going to drag them by their throats to the hellfire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us. Well, how does He do that? With sin. And Allah is warning us, don't follow Him. Yeah, so many people, they start complaining, I don't want to live a life, centered around God. Why? It's preventing me from this and that. And you realize, when you do that, who you're aligning yourself with. Yeah, so little people realize that. So the second way of really motivating yourself, fulfilling this phase of spirituality called qasd, becoming centered around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and dedicated to coming closer to Him, is remembering the blessings that He has given you. And also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as I was mentioning, this goes back to repentance as well. We can repent by looking at those blessings, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in what's called Adhkar al-Hadith, Adhkar al-Sabah wal-Masa', right? One of the things we say is what's called Sayyid al-Istighfar, the leader of istighfar, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. In it he says, Abu'u laka bi ni'matika alay wa abu'u bi dhanbi. I realize your blessings upon me, and I realize my sins as well. So linking these two together, the more you see those blessings, the more you realize how little you do. And the more you realize how bad sins really are. Now here you're going above the level of sins are harmful to the human soul and to the human body and mind, etc. You're going above and beyond this. Sins are a betrayal of the one who is loyal to you. Just like we do not accept, or we are offended when someone doesn't say thank you for a simple favor that we do, right? How about when we return Allah's blessings, rather we use His blessings to betray Him? SubhanAllah. I mean, that's a different type of shady, right? You loan someone your car, and then they go and do something illegal with it. I mean, that's just infuriating. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not become infuriated. He's above and beyond that, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you can kind of imagine how shady that is. And that we as human beings, not even before Muslims, as human beings, we don't accept this for ourselves. How about Muslims who, pray 5 times a day and prostrate their head to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now, the question, and this is an important question, that it's really important to ask ourselves in our times today. In the times of liberalism, of selfishness and self-centered lives, what is the greatest blessing that a person can ever attain? Right? So, obviously in this context, it becomes clear. The greatest blessing a person can ever attain is Iman, faith. Faith. Why is that? And there are many blessings. It's not the only blessing, but there are many blessings. This is the greatest one. For a very simple reason. Iman is a blessing that never ends. It is a blessing that is limitless. It's unlimited in what it can offer you. Any other blessing, whether it's the blessing of money, whether it's the blessing of health, the blessing of a spouse, kids, parents, any of that, all of it ends. And all of it is limited in what it can offer you, and it comes with baggage. Whereas Iman is something that is unlimited. There is never a time where a person will have reached the peak or the maximum of faith. Ever. There's always more that we can believe in. There's always a way to make your Iman stronger. Now, if you say, okay, what about the Prophet ﷺ? Now, of course, we're not going to go about and say that the Prophet ﷺ, his Iman still could have been stronger. But think of it this way. In the next life, we will see things that we couldn't fathom in this life. We will get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ways we weren't able to get to know Him in this life, thus increasing our Iman. Iman is unlimited in what it can offer you in this life, and it stays with you in the next life. Your Iman is what's going to save you in the next life. It is what's going to get you into paradise. Of course, after the blessing and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's part of our Iman, right? To believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give us that and to earn it. So when a person believes, even if their belief is very minimal, right? They weren't a practicing Muslim. Sooner or later, they'll make it to paradise. And their Iman that was so, weak will have bought them or gotten them, eternity in paradise, eternity in blessings. And when the disbelievers see this, by the way, right? They see these Muslims who, or these believers, I should say, who exit hellfire. These believers who were sinners, they did alcohol, they fornicated, they did all the same sins that these disbelievers were doing. Yet because they believed in La ilaha illallah, right, they get to exit hellfire and enter this paradise. At that point, the Quran says, or the Quran quotes them, رُبَّمَا يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْ كَانُوا مُسْلِمِينَ. Over and over again, the disbelievers say, if only we submitted to God. And we did what we did anyway. We still drank alcohol, we still did all of that. At least we could have gotten out of it, just like these people. So Iman, at its minimum, earns a person eternity in paradise. I mean, what kind of blessing is that? Now, how about those who actually prayed their 5 daily prayers, and did what they were supposed to do, stayed away from the major sins, I mean, what does paradise have to offer them? Unlimited bounties. Every Friday there's a general meeting where all the believers, all the people in paradise will gather. And it's that kind of mimicking the Friday of this life. So here in this life, Friday, we gather together to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pray, and then, right? Well, in paradise, there's something similar, a similar gathering where we all gather, but we won't listen to a khatib, rather we will listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He will unveil part of His self. And we will see some of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that's befitting to His majesty. And when His beauty, becomes visible, it reaches every corner of paradise, thus increasing its beauty, increasing its blessings of what it has to offer. To the extent that, when a husband and wife rejoin each other after that meeting, or you rejoin yourself with a friend or a loved one, they will tell you, you look more beautiful now than you did before. So paradise is constantly increasing. Now imagine this is going on week after week after week. 1 billion years passes, right? Look at the blessings of paradise. It is unlimited. It is endless in this life and the next life. So value it. Therefore, if the greatest blessing is Iman, the greatest illness, right? Spiritual illness. The greatest harm a person can do to themselves is the exact opposite, right? Now, it's not necessarily disbelief, because we have to enter ourselves into this realm. What the scholars use, what Ibn Qayyim uses is the word ghafla. Ghafla, which means unawareness, heedlessness. From what? From these realities. Yes, a Muslim can fall into this. How many Muslims, if you were to ask them, say, what is your purpose? They will tell you to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even if they respond, yes, to worship Allah, do they truly understand the depths of that? Right? How many of us, how many Muslims out there don't pray, thus being among the mughaffalin? How many Muslims pray, but throughout their day, right, completely forget? And that's not forbidden, by the way, for those who pray and whatnot. But what it's saying is that there is a lot of work to be done. Until a person is constantly remembering Allah, and I don't mean sitting down on the floor with the beads and saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah. No. When someone is constantly remembering Allah, to where they are centering their lives around Allah in all of their workplaces, and all of their places, workplace, home, and the commute, and etc. Always trying to get out a few dhikrs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to his mind or her mind, right? Until we can do that. And I believe it's Imam al-Shafi'i who describes this. Iman is when a person, or true Iman, a person knows that Iman has really overtaken their heart. It's when the person becomes like a fish. If they are outside of water, right, they struggle for oxygen. A believer is someone who, if they are not engaging with Allah, not remembering Him, they feel like that fish until they go back. Until we can get to that, and perhaps we won't be able to, but we can try. We can take it step by step. We can become better. Because ghafla is the greatest harm a person can do to themselves. And think of it very simply. Every second we don't spend remembering Allah or doing something for the sake of Allah or getting closer to Allah is that much blessings that we have, forbade ourselves from in the next life. If one tasbihah, if one dhikr of Allah earns you an eternal tree in paradise, right? that offers you fruits day in, day out. If that's what we lose from forgetting one tasbihah, imagine all else that we can do. Imagine every moment in our life that has passed when we are doing something that has not taken us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much we have lost. This is heavy, by the way. This is heavy, right? And it's supposed to be like that, because we're trying to build that qasd. It's not to demoralize ourselves. On the contrary, it's really trying to build this awareness in our minds. And no, we probably will never be able to get to that level. But if today's lecture reminds us every now and then of a few dhikrs, well, it's that much more that we have earned ourselves in the next life. Think of it that way. It's heavy. Yes, it's supposed to be heavy. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallallahu Inna sanuqi alayka qawlan thaqila. We are going to reveal to you a very heavy responsibility. The Quran is very heavy because it's quite, critical. It's telling you there's heaven and hell. This is either eternal bliss or eternal torture. May Allah protect us. It's not something simple. It has great consequences, so it's heavy. But when you feel that heaviness, right, that burden, we as Muslims remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remember that He is the one who helps us, and therefore we zip up the backpack and we say, let's go. We are going to overcome this, no matter how high the mountain might seem. That is who we are as believers. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us with that. And finally, when it comes to blessings and really realizing those blessings, part of that is understanding Allah's rights over us. Yes, Allah has rights over us, and that is taken from the hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu an, in which he says that he was riding with the Prophet ﷺ on a mount. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him, Ya Mu'adh, أتدري ما حق الله على العباد وما حق العباد على الله? He says, O Mu'adh, do you know what Allah's right is over His creation, or specifically human beings, His ibad, right? And what their right is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or with Allah? He said, Allah and His Messenger know best. Allah and His Messenger know best. He said Allah's right is that we worship Him alone and we don't associate partners with Him. And the right of those who do it is that Allah does not punish them. Or at least, they eventually enter paradise. Allah has a right over us, has many rights over us. And really, in order to internalize that, so this is a concept, it's floating in our minds. It makes sense, it's easy. But just because something is a concept, it makes sense, it's floating in the mind, there's another process that needs to be done in order for that concept to really enter the heart, to internalize it. And that is realizing, when we don't fulfill His right, who are we really disobeying? We're not disobeying Joe Schmo or Jane Doe. We are disobeying the greatest authority in the universe. The one whose authority is so powerful, so deep embedded in us, that all it takes is one cell in the brain, and that person is done. That's it. And that is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it said that Nimrud, the one who challenged Ibrahim alayhi salam in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? It said that he was killed. He claimed to be God. I'm the creator, I give life and death, etc. It's said that he was killed by a mosquito. A mosquito entered his nose and it wouldn't go away. So he called his servant to try, smack it out, and they kept smacking him until he died. Right? Something very small as a germ floating around in the air, we're done. When we don't fulfill our duties, remember who we are going against. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we use our senses to disobey Allah, remember who we are disobeying. We spoke about the loyalty side. Now let's look at the authority side. You are disobeying the one who knows, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورِ. And He knows the betrayal. He mentions betrayal, kha'ina, right? The betrayal of the eye. That simple look on the glance, right? And what the heart conceals, thoughts. No one knows your thoughts. And alhamdulillah, that's one of the greatest blessings, right? It would be pretty bad if people can read other people's minds. It's not going to go so well. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that, right? His authority is to that extent, that reach. And just a simple command, very easy, and that person is done. Subhanallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and to really bring us up to this challenge, to help us hold these weights and not let it be a burden on us as we walk this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Madarij as-Salikin, those who are trying to go through the various levels towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. جزاكم الله خير وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.